Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today. My name is Renee Roman Nose. For those of you who know me, often I'm asked, where's Renee today? Today, I am coming to you live from my friend's attic. I don't have Wi-Fi in my new place yet, so I had to punt, as they say in football. I had to find a way around to come and talk to y'all. So I'm super excited to be here and representing Native Wellness Institute and our Power Hour. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that you're taking time today to share your time with Native Wellness Institute. And I encourage you to share this with your friends and post it to your page, all those things. So let's get started. I want to talk to you today about the Native vote and how important it is for you to vote. So many moons ago, people saw the Iroquois Confederacy. They saw the women and they saw, I know it's going to look funky up here in the basement, or the attic, I mean, but that's okay. See, I'm sharing someone else's space for our video call today. Anyway, the Iroquois women had and continue to have great power. And the suffragettes saw that the Native women had all this power, and they're like, whoa, hey, we want some of that. And they began organizing and they began pushing for the right to vote for women, which as our Indigenous women, we've always had that balance in our communities of the responsibilities that we take on and the responsibilities that we understand to be inherent, which is that we each have a role to play in our community. And in the early part of this country being established at that time, uh, white women didn't have power. They were chattel. They were, if they had belongings when they married, those belongings became the belongings of their husbands. And if they inherited things, it was belonging to their husband. So it was really a challenging time for them and their culture. And in our cultures, many of our cultures, women have great power and continue to do so. So I'm really excited today about this topic, and I am very pleased that you're tuning in. Feel free to ask questions and feel free to post up your thoughts. I would like to ask you, how do you think your vote is important? Or do you think it is, or do you think it isn't? Because I'm here to tell you your vote is vital. The Native vote has been integral to the past several elections, especially the presidential ones. We have gotten people elected. We have gotten people moved out of office because we come together as a community. We make sure people get to polling places. We make sure that people are registered to vote. You have to be registered by August 29th. So you've got to get yourself in gear and make that happen. So why should you vote? It's an inherent right as an American, as people with dual citizenship from our own nation and from the nation of America. I've heard it said that some people don't want to vote because they think if they vote in the elections for America, then America can interfere with our tribal people, with our tribes, our nations, our bands, all of that. Well, I'm here to tell you that they already do. They're already involved. They're already and pushing their legislation that affects our communities. They're um, always trying to decrease their treaty responsibilities. They've never fully met their treaty responsibilities, but they fully enjoyed our land and our resources. So you must vote to protect your land, to protect your resources. You must vote to protect your children. All of the things that are vital to us: clean water, clean air, uh, mining. What are we doing about mining? I actually asked somebody once, they have oil on their land, and I said to this person, are you concerned about the effects on the earth? And this person responded, well, 70% of this building is plastic, which of course is derived from oil. And I thought, that's a cop out. The benefits of oil are well documented. However, for thousands of years, human beings have survived without oil. We have thrived. We have been able to live and live well without oil. We are creative human beings. We can find other alternatives to oil and to plastic because oil is not a non-renewable resource. It's not going to stay there forever. It's caused a lot of havoc in our communities, especially the Osage. That if you look at what happened to the Osage Nation, you'll see the murderous effects of oil and greed and people's desire to steal from our own indigenous people again and again, unfortunately. So I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to the movie about the Osage Nation. And I hope that it documents well their struggles, their um, ability to survive in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. They're really very resilient people, and I admire them very much. So, in 1888, there was a suffragette. Her name was Alice Fletcher, and she said, "I crave for my Indian sisters your help, your patience, and your unfailing labors to hasten the day when the laws of the land shall know neither male nor female, but grant to all equal rights and equal justice." In the 131 years following her speech, women in general have gained a great many rights, but the Haudenosaunee women have lost many of theirs, and there remains an upward battle for equal justice. So, as we enter the centennial for women's suffrage, a lot of people are looking back and they're focusing on, where did women become empowered? Where did white women become empowered? Because our women have always been empowered and are going to continue to be empowered and going to continue to strengthen our people. So when the suffragettes saw the strength and power of the clan mothers, they were inspired by that. And if you've ever met a clan mother or an elder, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're awe-inspiring. It just makes you feel wonderful to be around someone with that level of responsibility and knowledge, wisdom, and the willingness to carry on and to share what they have with their communities and with the world, really. Because all those seeds, they grow. Those seeds of knowledge grow. So if you look at the effects on the suffragettes who spent, a substantial amount of time trying to become eligible to vote, something as simple as a vote. And then you look at how long it took Native people to get the right to vote in a land that is our own land, that is, we are indigenous to this land. This is where the bones of our ancestors lie. And since time immemorial. And we must vote. We must vote to protect our land. We must vote to ensure that our children are protected. We must vote to ensure that our water, our land, our very existence, frankly, is protected. As we all know, Native people are unfortunately, per capita, we're the most likely group to be killed by the police. Our Black relatives are second per capita, and it's not a list anyone wants to be the top of. But we have to utilize our voice and our vote to help combat this systemic racism that lies in our country. So I urge you, I encourage you to do so. Vote with a friend, vote by mail, vote by mail-in ballot. Excuse me, one second. I think I told you. Woo! I think I told you that I'm in my friend's attic because I have no Wi-Fi at my place. Hoping to fix that today. I wasn't unable to. Well, anyways, I just moved into my place, so I have no Wi-Fi, and that's today's chore after this. And I am super excited to be here and to be sharing time with you and to be taking part in Native Wellness Institute's Power Hour. And I have done several power hours, sometimes from um, in the woods next to my daughter's house, sometimes from just different places and the living room, and hopefully soon from my own place. And I will keep you posted as for that. So it's kind of fun doing these power hours and being a part of your day. And here, I want to show you my power hour buddy. That's my that's my dog Vera. Right now, she wants some attention, and I had to close the door because it was getting noisy from the neighbors. So, anyways, back to our native vote. I am wondering how many of you are registered now, and when will you be registered if you're not registered? Because this election is vital. This election is integral to the history and the future of our country. At this time, perhaps more than any other time, except in the formation of our country. In terms of modern times, we are under attack. We are endangered. All of the environmental laws that were passed during the Obama years, almost everything that the Obama presidency enacted has been torn away from us. And everything's under attack. Social Security is under attack. Our environment is definitely under attack, and many of our institutions, education is under attack. All of these things that help make a nation thrive are under attack. We have had judge after judge after judge installed in lifetime positions judges who are unqualified and judges who are inept. And that's not what we need as a country. We can't thrive that way. People's lives are going to be severely adversely affected by such appointments. And many of the directors or many of the leadership positions in this current administration, they're they're serving as temporary so that they don't have to go through the hearings necessary to be appointed in accordance with our institutions, in accordance with the way our government is formed. So why is this important? Well, if you have an inept judge, are you going to have laws that are followed carefully and thoughtfully? Or are you going to have um, continue to have uh, people going to jail for things that they may not be guilty of? And I follow the news quite closely, and I see frequently people who've served 30 years or more for crimes they didn't commit. So the judges we have now, as we have environmental cases, we have tribal law cases, we have all these things winding their way through the courts. If we continue to elect inept judges, unqualified judges, then if we continue to allow that to happen, let me clarify that, then we are going to suffer the consequences. And it's going to be very, very difficult for us as Americans to thrive and for our children to thrive. So we have to be proactive and we have to vote. So women have been able to vote since 1920 and have served in Congress since 1917. But they only make up about 24% of the House and about 25% of the Senate. So we need to elect more women to office so we have greater balance in our country. And you can help by voting. You can help by running for office. You can make a difference. Your voice matters. So right now, we have the awesome Deb Haaland and Sharice Davids, the first Native American women elected to the House of Representatives. And we've had a total of 18 Native Americans serve in the House. And until this time, we've only had 4 in the Senate, but none of those were women. So in spite of having many of our tribal and nation organizations and administrations have clear women representation, the Native women's representation in US politics is sadly lacking. And as is the representation of any Native people is sadly lacking. So it's getting better, but it's not good enough. We must encourage qualified Native people to run for office. We must help them and guide them and be willing to stand by them and help them to grow and then help them to run and then vote for them. We've got to get the vote out. We've got to get ourselves off the couch, away from the TV, away from our cell phones, and become active advocates for Native people in office. So something else, there's a few other things I'm going to share with you because we do have quite some time. It's funny when you're doing a power hour, you think, oh, it's only an hour. And then you realize, oh, it's an hour. I've got to talk for an hour. But it's exciting to be here with you, and it's exciting to share my enthusiasm. I'm so excited about it that I'm talking to you from the attic of my friend's house because she has Wi-Fi. And you know, a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do. When you need Wi-Fi, you go find Wi-Fi. So hopefully, like I said, my next power hour, I'll have Wi-Fi and can speak from my living room. And I just love the whole. Where's Renee today? So I'm hiding in the attic. It's a what do you call it? In the old days, they would say an artist in a garret. But anyways, I'm super glad to be here. I'm grateful for my friends' hospitality and generosity and kindness. And I'm super happy to be here with you, talking to you about the native vote. So, how many people do you know who are registered to vote? How many people do you know who are going to vote? Our last election for president resulted in a very difficult presidency for us all. Unfortunately, the the level of incompetence that we're seeing is astonishing. And the fact that there's so many people who are behind 45 and allowing him and his family to continue with their depredations and their utter disregard for American lives and for our environment and for their lining of their own pockets and the pockets of their friends. There's only one way to stop that, and that's to vote. You must register, you must vote, not just for yourself, but for your community, for your children, for their children, because the ripples of this administration will be felt for a long time. Something as simple as having healthy foods in schools. That was an Obama era legislation. That was an Obama era change, thanks to Michelle Obama, who pushed for healthy foods for all our children in school. So that's ended. And, we all know that our children do better if they've had a good meal, a good, healthy meal. And for quite some time, that's what they were having at school. And now they're not. And how can we fix that? Vote. Right now, the Alaska wildlife, the Alaskan, oh, I'm not going to remember the term for it. So Alaska has this beautiful, pristine area, and Trump has just opened it up for oil exploration. Again, oil is a non-renewable resource. Certainly, we have other resources, hemp. We have so many other resources that can be used to make the things that are currently made from a non-renewable resource that is not healthy for us. Oil is a cancer-causing thing. Gas is a cancer-causing thing. You can look that up. Don't just take my word for it. You gotta do research on your own, and that's important. What candidates do you like? What legislation do you like? And I realize sometimes it's difficult to look through these things, and it's sometimes a little tedious. But if you're not an informed voter, you might support something you don't really believe in. So, ask your friends, ask your family members, hey, what do you think about this legislation? What do you think about this person who's running for office? Do you think I should vote for them? You think I should not vote for them? What do you recommend? Ask each other. Ask around. Don't be afraid to do that. It's a good thing to do. So, when we think about the native vote, I think, about all the times it's made a huge difference. What differences has the native vote made in your community? Look it up. I'm giving you homework. I'm a teacher. This is your homework. So I'm really pleased that you're here. You're tuning in today. And I hope that you are considering voting and considering get a vote buddy. Don't just vote alone. It's okay to do that, but it's more important that you vote. It's so vital that you vote. So try to determine, okay, what matters items of legislation are up in your area, in your state. How can you vote in your state and be safe during a time of COVID? Well, you can vote by mail. Uh, right now, we're getting mixed messages. Our 45 is trying to say that it's full of fraud, but vote by mail is not full of fraud. That is a falsehood promoted by someone who doesn't want to leave office because, frankly, he has so many charges pending against him that are waiting for him to get out of office. He has blocked, I believe it's 29 women have accused him of sexual assault, rape. Um, his family's under investigation in New York for uh, lying about the value of their properties so that they wouldn't have to pay higher taxes. On and on and on and on. And they're they're on the ropes. That family. I refer to them as the Trump crime family, the mafia family. But sometimes when people have a lot of power, and we've seen this in some of our own communities, when people have a lot of power, sometimes they abuse it for their own benefit, for the benefit of their family members and their friends. And we've seen a lot of that. We keep hearing, we can't afford $600 for a week for our unemployed Americans adversely affected by COVID, but we can afford another tax cut for the rich. Well, when Ronald Reagan was in office, he cut the tax rate from 70% down to, I believe, 28% for wealthy Americans. And that is a huge tax cut. And even when their tax rate was 70%, the wealthy still did very, very well. Our country was thriving. But again, it was a case of someone with privilege um, taking care of other people with privilege. So, how did that help Americans, the average Americans? It didn't. It meant that we paid more taxes. So, we have to choose our leaders with care, and we have to advocate for greater equality in our country, not just for women, which I really think, the Equal Rights Amendment should have been passed a long time ago. So American society needs to catch up with the Iroquois Confederacy and Native nations all across this country because we have equality. Y'all need to catch up. You can learn from us, right? We have all these things that can be done and should be. The Equal Rights Amendment should have been passed a long time ago. You shouldn't have to say, oh, you should get equal pay for equal work. It should just be a thing, right? We should go, okay, you have a bachelor's degree, you have a bachelor's degree, you're doing the exact same job. Let's pay you the same. What a great idea. Oprah Winfrey once worked as a weather girl, and she went to her boss and she said, hey, this my coworker and I, we do the same job, but he makes a lot more money than I do. And her boss basically said, well, he has a family and you don't. Doing the exact same job, exact same education, skills, qualifications, whatever, but she's female. So she was paid substantially less. And you can look that story up. It's really she's had an amazing life. So I'm looking at comparing and contrasting how we as Indigenous people treat our women historically compared to how America treats its women. And they're still behind. They need to catch up. We got to help them. And we got to help each other. So the advocacy that our communities gives and makes is making a difference. The missing and murdered Indigenous women movement is making a difference. Our organizations, our national organizations, our regional, our tribes, our voices united make a difference. It's vital that we continue to do so. It is without doubt and a very, very important time for us as a nation. It's a very, very important time for our country. We stand on the brink of a precipice. It's like we're in a car teetering on a cliffhanger for sure, but we can fix that. We can vote, and we must vote. It's not even a question. You can't just say, oh, I don't feel like voting. Well, you had millions of people in the last presidential election who didn't feel like voting. So what happened? We ended up with the worst pick we could have possibly gotten. And where has it taken our country? It has resulted in chaos. It has resulted in civil unrest, and it continues to do so. The divisiveness experienced by our country at this time is almost unprecedented, and it's a tough time to be on the sidelines. Don't be on the sidelines. Your country needs you. Your community needs you. So if you want to know why every Native vote counts, then go to nativevote.org. It's a terrific website. You'll learn a lot. You will, I think, be empowered by the information that you're shared with there. While they don't, let me read this to you. Native Vote is a nonpartisan initiative. All Native Vote activities will be conducted in a nonpartisan manner in compliance with IRS rules and regulations and will not constitute prohibited political activity. We do not endorse any candidate for office or support any partisan statements or endorsements expressed by members of nativevote.org. I wish the churches would do that. They're supposed to. Anyway, many of them do not. It's very sad. It's and illegal. At any rate, it's a terrific website. You will learn a lot, and I look forward to hearing from you about whether you're going to vote or not, and how many people are you going to get registered. Get people registered. Get them out to vote. Make it happen. You can do it. You can be a part of the change that needs to happen. So what's interesting is there is an article. There's a lot of things interesting about voting, but there's an article that came out in the Des Moines Register recently. It said 2020 Democrats are stepping up their courtship of Native American voters. Here's why, and I would like to share this with you. Christina Blackcloud remembers a childhood of running freely between her home on Iowa's Meskwaki settlement to annual harvest time celebrations across the street. She joined other kids playing in the water of the Iowa River, a longtime source of fresh fish for the state's only federally recognized tribe. The same river today is brown, murky and fenced off, she said. Black Cloud's children and grandchild aren't making the same memories on the land, she lamented. Fossil fuels, pipelines, water quality, air quality. It all affects tribal people. It all affects tribal people first because everything we do and believe is centered around nature. She said, everything we're surrounded by is politics, whether or not we see it every day. But Black Cloud, vice chair of the Iowa Democratic Party's Native American caucus, says she's hopeful for change. Presidential candidates visiting the settlement she grew up on are showing they have an interest in tribal people's priorities, she says. Democrats seeking the White House are starting to focus on issues facing Native Americans. Native American voter turnout has ticked upward in the last several elections, and while Native Americans make up a small slice of the electorate, they overwhelmingly support Democrats. An increase in Native American voters in key battleground states could overcome the margins of victory President Donald Trump earned in Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and North Carolina, Native activists said. You might think, well, 2% of the population, that's not going to make a whole big difference for the president, said U.S. Rep. Deb Haaland of New Mexico, one of the first Native American women to serve in Congress. The Native vote is going to make a difference for various congresspeople across the country, for House and Senate seats across the states, for county commissions. Oliver O.J. Simmons, an enrolled member, I apologize if I've Simmons, an enrolled member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe in South Dakota, said it's long past time for candidates to engage directly with Native American people, and I apologize if I've mispronounced his name. With that in mind, his nonprofit, Four Directions, organized the Frank Lemaire Native American Presidential Forum to take place in Sioux City on Monday and Tuesday. 8 Democratic candidates have committed to attend. The 2-day forum will be the first in history to question presidential candidates exclusively on issues facing Native Americans. This forum is not a gotcha moment, he said. It's more like an educational forum. You don't have to know a lot about us coming in, but in the end, you're going to have more information than the majority of Americans. The Native American electorate, Native Americans make up a small slice of the electorate. According to the 2010 census, 5.2 million people identified as American Indian and Alaska Native alone, or in combination with at least one other race, though the population is routinely undercounted, which means you must go to the US Census and be counted because you count, because we are still here and we have to remind them every single day. We have to remind the federal government, we're still here. You still have to honor your treaty obligations. So the vast majority vote Democratic, except in states where energy is a large focus of the regional economy, such as Alaska, North Dakota, or Oklahoma. Support in those states tends to be more bipartisan. Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt is a member of the Cherokee tribe. 2 of that state's U.S. House members, Tom Cole and Markwayne Mullen, are also enrolled members. On the eve of the November 2018 midterms, Native Americans said in a national poll by Latino Decisions they were planning to vote 61% to 33% for Democrats, for Democratic U.S. House candidates, a nearly 2-to-1 margin. The poll had a margin error of 4 percentage points. The Native American vote could be a factor that tips the outcome in 6 key states this year: Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. We could decide the 2020 winner. Though Native Americans are a relatively small slice of the electorate, they could decide the presidential election winner in 6 swing states where the number of voting age Native Americans is greater than the 2016 margin of victory. How do those critical states compare? In those states, the number of eligible Native voters exceeds the margin won by the victor in 2016. Trump won 4, former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton won 2. In a seventh, Colorado, the estimated number of Native voters, 130,796, will come close to matching the 138,386 vote margin Clinton carried in 2016. Native Americans' traditional support of Democrats doesn't automatically mean that the party wields an advantage, said Laura Evans, a University of Washington professor who studies the relationship between tribes and the federal government. Native American voters need to be convinced about whether either party is going to truly serve their interests, which is very true. Evans said, I think either party has to get out there and communicate their message. While the numbers of Native Americans are relatively small, Indian Country Today editor Mark Trahant said they make up an important share of voters in key primary states, including Arizona, Nevada, and Iowa, which holds the first in the nation caucuses. Among Democratic candidates, Trahant thinks the ones who could benefit most by robust Native turnout are those whose home states have significant Native populations, such as Montana Governor Steve Bullock and U.S. Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. The Native American support that U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont received after visiting the Meskwaki settlement nearly helped him win the 2016 Iowa caucuses. He said, he earned 83.3% of votes in the Indian settlement precinct. Clinton won the county that is home to the settlement. In 2018, Native Americans made important political gains. That election saw the first 2 Native American women elected to Congress, Holland and Representative Sharice Davids of Kansas, as well as the election of the highest ranking Native woman in executive office in U.S. history, Peggy Flanagan. Flanagan, a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, was elected Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota. Indians tend to vote in higher numbers in presidential election years anyway, and I think with the enthusiasm built in 2018, it probably will build on that, Trahant said. So it's, again, just vital that we vote. So the same Latino decisions poll that found 2-to-1 support for Democrats among Native American midterm voters also found widespread displeasure with Trump. 2 of every 3 Native voters said Trump's rhetoric and policies will cause a major setback to the progress made in recent years. Notably, Trump's 2016 election was preceded by a president who paid particular attention to tribal issues. And that's what we need. We need those kinds of leaders who are going to listen to us and learn from us. President Barack Obama, who was adopted by the Crow tribe in Montana during the 2008 campaign, directed his administration to actively consult with the nation's 573 federally recognized tribes. The Obama White House held an annual conference in Washington where Native American leaders could air their concerns with federal policymakers. And while his administration had a mixed policy record, he himself was warmly viewed by many tribal leaders. Since he took office in 2017, Trump has reversed Obama administration decisions by approving the Keystone Pipeline and Dakota Access Pipeline over objections from nearby tribes, citing environmental and treaty concerns. Trump also has offended Native Americans with his praise for Andrew Jackson, who led the slaughter of tribes as an American general and forcibly removed them from their lands as president, and his Pocahontas nickname for 2020 presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren, who apologized this year after claiming Cherokee ancestry, has been widely derided by Native people. Holland, who has endorsed Warren, so you can tell this, so I apologize, I don't have the date on this article, but it's really fascinating. It really shows the importance of voting. Holland, who has endorsed Warren, said tribal leaders she speaks to are devastated by the president's behavior. They hate the rhetoric, she said. They are speaking up and saying, we're a community. We care about each other. We're not going to follow the example of our president. Simmons, the organizer of the Iowa Forum, has made it his mission to increase Native American participation in elections. 22 years ago, that meant paying local counties to offer equal early voting for people living on South Dakota reservations. In 2000, South Dakotans living outside the Rosebud Indian or Pine Ridge reservations had 46 days to cast an early ballot, he explained. Those in majority Native counties had only 1 day. Four Directions raised 20 grand to pay Oglala Lakota County, then called Shannon County, to staff early voting sites in future elections. And so we asked, he said, he lives on the Rosebud Sioux Indian Reservation in Mission, South Dakota. They did a little bit in 2002. In 2004, they gave a few days. 2006, nothing. We decided that enough's enough, and we filed a lawsuit against Fall River County and the South Dakota Secretary of State. After settling out of court, this county set up a satellite office in the Pine Ridge Reservation, through an agreement that expired last year. His daughter, Donna Simmons, said her parents roped her into the task of knocking on doors when she was a teenager. I've done this with my own children, in their effort to increase local turnout starting in 2000. It's been remarkable, Donna said. She's a grassroots organizer at Four Directions and an enrolled member of Rosebud Sioux Tribe, and she now lives in Provo, Utah. I have to take a step back sometimes to process it all and how far we've come. Native voters never felt important enough, and now the whole community has a different sense of being. As part of the forum, organizers hope presidential candidates will address issues specific to the Native community, as well as issues that are dealt with more broadly as a society. For instance, the U.S. opioid epidemic, caused in part by widespread increases in prescriptions of opioid medications, has devastated parts of Indian country, tribal leaders said. The opioid-related overdose death rate among Native Americans slightly exceeds the national average, according to a 2016 report from the Albuquerque Area Southwest Tribal Epidemiology Center. So this goes on to discuss the substance abuse crisis is a huge problem for Indian country. Our area, without a doubt, is hit hard by it, said Ron Allen, tribal chairman of the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe in Sequim, Washington, and former president of NCAI. While issues related to substance abuse, health care, climate change, and education are universal, other crises uniquely affect Indigenous communities. The murder rate among Native women in some counties comprised primarily of tribal lands is more than 10 times the national average, according to the Department of Justice. But the Department of Justice's missing persons database includes only about 2% of the 5,712 reports of missing Indigenous women and girls in 2016, according to a 2019 report by the Urban Indian Health Institute. Bullock brought up the epidemic of violence against Native women in a short speech at the Meskwaki powwow this month in Tama. As governor of Montana, he signed a bipartisan bill this year to create a missing persons specialist role within the state DOJ. No family should have to go for at times, literally decades, without justice being delivered, he told reporters in Tama. Meskwaki Tribal Chairman Anthony Waseskuk said Bullock's attention to the issue was a welcome departure from the numerous past visits by presidential hopefuls to the settlement. He noted a 41-year-old Meskwaki woman, Rita Papake, went missing in 2015. And again, I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. People butcher my name a lot, and so I always feel bad about that. But I do the best I can. So thanks for your patience. So candidates seem to be more interested in Native American issues than they have been in the past, especially the issue of missing women, especially Native American women, he said. So there are more people becoming more aware of the issues facing us as Native communities, facing us adversely affecting our communities, adversely affecting our water quality, adversely affecting our women and children, women and girls. Human trafficking, human trafficking is a huge crisis in our country, as is the opioid crisis, as is water quality, as is COVID-19. Our communities, especially our smaller communities that um, don't have housing, tribal housing programs, they were not given the formula used by the Trump administration to grant COVID monies was based on tribal housing. If your tribe does not have a substantial tribal housing program, you got a lot less money. There's a local tribe up here in Washington State, where I currently live, that received only $150,000 to help them deal with with COVID-19. And I know you know as well as I do that's not going to go very far for a tribe, unfortunately. And this particular tribe, which I will not mention the name of, they have gone above and beyond to ensure that their community members have food and have the access that they need to survive through this pandemic, which we have now heard may last, according to the World Health Organization, this pandemic may last 2 years. The flu pandemic of 1918 also lasted 2 years. And yes, there are a lot of people working, there are a lot of agencies working on um, vaccines, but vaccines take a while. You don't just go, oh, hey, here's a vaccine. You have to test it. You have to make sure there aren't adverse effects from it. And that's going to take a while, my friends. So it's important that we vote. It's important that we vote for people who believe in science. We vote for people who believe in medicine. We vote for people who believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We don't vote for people who pit us against one another. We don't vote for people who promote bullying, who promote violence against women, who promote organizations that actively seek to diminish others. We don't vote for white nationalism. We don't vote for the KKK. We should not support anyone who does. We should not support anyone who says um, there's good people on both sides when you're talking about violent, radical white nationalism. We should vote for unity. We should vote for health. We should vote for clean water, clean air, clean land, clean food. We have to stand together as human beings, as Americans. We have to come together and we have to vote for intelligence. We have to vote for someone who's educated, knowledgeable, someone willing to have people around them who are also educated and knowledgeable and good leaders, healthy leaders who listen and learn and are open to that. Your vote counts, my relatives. Your vote is vital in this upcoming election. So please register. Encourage your family and friends to register, even if they don't agree with you. If they want to vote for whoever they want to vote for, that's what matters. Our native vote has changed election after election. We have seen the suppression of the native vote across the country, especially in the Dakotas. Efforts to disenfranchise native voters have been ongoing for decades. And that's because they know we make a difference. Our vote, our voices make a difference. So don't be afraid to vote. Don't be afraid to vote by mail. Please register right away. You just have call your local elections office today. Call them today. Call them right away. Find out how you can get registered to vote and do so. I have to go register to vote myself because I just moved. So I'm in a different county and I must get registered because I believe in voting. And I think it's vital that we do that simple exercise of our rights as dual citizens, as our rights as Native Americans and as Americans. So, my friends, get out the vote. Get everyone you know. Have a Zoom voting party, whatever it takes. So, coming to you live from the attic of my friend's house who has Wi-Fi. Woohoo! I'm super glad that you shared your time with me, and I hope that you vote. Post up on my page after you vote. Renee L. Romanos on Facebook. I want to hear every person. If you voted, post up on my page. Tell us you voted. Tell us why you voted. Tell us where you voted. I want to hear it. I want to hear your voting story. Did you vote by mail? Did you vote by absentee ballot? In Washington and Oregon, you can mail in your ballot. Easy peasy. You can also drop it in a ballot box. So that's fantastic. So when you get your vote by mail ballot, fill it out right away. Go put it in a ballot box. Don't worry about the mail because we've heard that there's some challenges there and that may be resolved. I don't know. But I would rather vote myself and drop it in a ballot box and know it's where it needs to be. And let's do it. Let's vote together. Let's show the unity of our Indigenous people. Let's show the unity that we have shown for several years on the importance of taking care of our communities. And we've been trying to do that. We've been working together for decades. Our communities have been advocating uh, since the first boat landed here of sharing, of caring, and let's do that this November by voting. Thanks for tuning in. This is Renee Romanos for Native Wellness Power Hour. Again, coming to you live from my friend's attic because she has Wi-Fi. All right, I'll talk to you later. I hope you take care. I hope you're doing very well. I wish you and your family good health. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask to protect yourself and to protect those around you. And social distance. Have your groceries delivered curbside service. Take care of yourself, my relatives. I look forward to seeing you again soon.